tú siempre junto a mí, con risas y llanto, dolor y felicidad.
Bienvenidos a Compra, Vende y Gana con Catalina, el espacio donde los sueños de tener tu casa propia, invertir con inteligencia o vender con estrategia se hacen realidad. Con tips claros, consejos expertos y toda la energía de Catalina, tu agente inmobiliaria de confianza, descubrirás que tu mejor inversión comienza aquí. Quédate, aprende y prepárate para transformar tu futuro. Esto es Compra, Vende y Gana con Catalina.
Happy Tuesday, everyone. And now we're at the English version of the podcast, Buy, Sell, and Win. And today we have a very interesting subject, and it's don't buy a home until you know these mistakes. Maria, thank you again for accepting to come to host the show with me.
It's always a pleasure for me to be with you, and it's so fulfilling to be able to learn so much about this industry and what to do and what not to do.
Exactly. So Maria always has a lot of surprise questions for me.
Well, I have a few for this one as well, and I know that we are on your live, so feel free to comment your questions and have little points that'll make this episode a bit more interesting.
Exactly.
And talking about what to know and what are these mistakes about, and what are the most common mistakes buyers in Montreal make when they're purchasing their first home.
Look, Maria, and this is a recurrent thing, and I see it with people that are now trying to resell the properties the properties that they bought for the first time, and it's that they rush into the process without understanding how it works. So they rush without, first of all, knowing what they can afford.
Yes.
Second, what neighborhoods they want to live in.
That's so important.
Yes, so important.
I think that's one of the first steps that you need to know. It's where are you buying?
Yes. But it's two main things I'm going to say.
Okay.
It's where are you buying and what is the financial analysis of the transaction.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a good point.
Yes.
Okay.
And we can talk a little bit more about it later, but one of the first things I ask people when I meet them for the first time that they want to purchase their first property is, tell me how much you're paying in rent. Mm-hmm. Are you happy where you're renting? Because if the answer to that question is yes, and they're paying cheap, they shouldn't be buying a home to live in. They should be buying a property as an investment.
Okay, but now do you find that there are cheap rents or no?
There are.
It depends on the salary.
Yeah,
of the
it depends, and it depends how long you have been renting. There's people that have been renting for years, and of course, when, like I say, if your family is growing and where you're renting is no longer viable to live in, well, that's another story. But let's say you're comfortable where you're living, you like the neighborhood, you're paying a cheap rent, don't go and buy. That myth that you're throwing the money to the waste when you're renting, it is and it is not true.
Why is that?
So again, because your principal residence, the one you live in, is a real estate liability. Why? Because the only thing that it generates is costs. So if you're paying a cheap rent, why are you going to go buy?
That makes sense.
Now, again, like I say, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't buy real estate. You should buy real estate, but you can buy real estate to rent it out.
Yes, and keep living in your rental property.
Exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
But talking about location, because those are some of the things that people don't even think about the first hand. They just fall in love with the property that they see or what they want and the style of property that they want.
I have a very clear case on that. I have a family, well, actually I have two families that they fell in love with the properties, but they didn't look at the location, And now one of them, for example, has a commute time that of over an hour and a half to go to work and an hour and a half to go back. So that is ruining their quality of life.
That's so true.
So it's not only, and I have another family that bought in Montreal, but in a location where it's not that secure, where there's not good schools for their kids.
Yes,
and they have a beautiful property in which they invested a lot of money, but they want to resell because the location is not the one that they were expecting. So you have to be very careful with.
And you know what? I think this comes true with the increase of value of a property, where you buy. Because, for example, I have friends that they bought a new house under construction and they style it how they want it, but it's so far away and out of nowhere that they like it, but it's just so complicated for them to go to work if they work in Montreal.
Yeah.
But and there are people, for example, like me, that I don't have the biggest castle, but I wanted to make sure that the property was closer to the city, even though it's not in the city, it's closer to the city, closer to a highway. So location is important because the two properties, they can be on the same price, but the value that they will take in, it will be so different.
Totally. And the other thing that I always tell my clients is, you're in a neighborhood, never ever buy the nicest house on the neighborhood.
Oh, really?
Never buy the nicest. Always buy the ugliest.
How?
Because the other properties, if you have a castle and around you have ugly properties and houses, even if you live in a castle, that's not gonna go up in value because people buy neighborhood.
Yes.
But if you have an ugly house, or let's not be mean and say ugly, but let's say you have a smaller, simpler
or
house. Or an average house on a neighborhood where all the other houses are castles, your house is going to sell for very, very high price because of the location.
I didn't know. Okay. And talking about mortgage and pre-approvals.
Yes.
Why is skipping a mortgage and pre-approval such a risky move?
Because first, you don't know exactly how much you can afford, so you can start looking for properties that are completely off your price range, or you can be missing on better opportunities because you can afford more and you don't know.
Yeah.
Number two, once you put an offer, your offer might fail because it's not going to pass financing. And like I tell my buyers, I personally do not start shopping around with clients until they have a pre-approval. I did it in the past when I was a young broker, and I had offers that failed because of that. It was a waste of time for my clients, and it was a waste of time for me. And now, for example, if you want to send an offer, you need to send the pre-approval of your client so the seller of the property knows that your client is serious and that they can actually afford the property.
But I didn't know this. People are actually skipping the pre-approval part.
Oh, there's still...
Really?
Because they don't know the process. Again, because you've bought a couple of properties, but a lot of people do it backwards.
Okay.
They start looking for the property without knowing how much they can afford. And it's not one. I have tons of cases of people, and I always tell them, no, we're going to first start by the pre-approval.
Let's go back.
And then we look for the properties. Yeah.
And talking about these things that for me, they seem very important and not a lot of people think about them when they're getting into a new property, is how important it is to understand additional costs like the welcome tax, the notary fees, the condo fees for some people, and the inspections.
There's a lot of people that think that the only thing you need to have is your down payment.
Yes.
And that's not true.
Well, that's how some people sell it as well, huh? Some agents and
some banks. And it's not true. It's not true. And you need at least an additional 2% to cover what we call the closing costs. And what are the closing costs? So you're going to have the inspection. You're going to have your notary fees. You're going to have your welcome tax. So that is why you can, normally if you work with a mortgage broker, they are going to calculate this additional 2% that you need to have in your account apart from the down payment. But yeah, it's not only, when I do the first call and I start telling them, okay, it's not only your, let's say 5% if you buy a property under 500,000, it's this and this and this, and we make a list and we make calculations, it's an additional 2%, and you need to have it. If not, you're not going to get pre-approved.
Oof. And talking about condo fees, because those are a bit surprising. You can have some extra cash for those condo fees, but condo fees are so high right now.
Yes. And actually, I'm planning on doing one of the podcasts only about condominiums. Nice. Because there is the new law, which is Law 16, that passed not too long ago, and that has been updating how co-ownerships are being managed. So why are condo fees going up so much? Because now buildings or co-ownerships need to have what we call a contingency fund. They need to have a self-insurance fund. The self-insurance fund is the deductible of the insurance in case you need to use it. Now they also need to do a contingency fund study and asset management plan, meaning how much money you have to have for the repairs that are upcoming in the next 25 years. And the majority of the buildings or the majority of the co-ownership, because they wanted to keep the condo fees low, they don't have those funds. And they need to catch up. And now it's by law.
And you know what? I hear some cases that people with condos, they have crazy condo fees that they just have to pay back to back to back, and sometimes they just don't have enough for them. And they are they obligated to pay them?
Yes, and if you do not pay them, the syndicate of co-owners can put a legal mortgage on your condo, meaning that the moment you sell, the notary is going to reimburse them, or it's going to make it very difficult for you to sell.
Talking about this, did you know, and this has happened to me, and I don't know if you have some experience about this, or people in your life, or people that see this live or this episode, some condominiums, their condo fees, for those who don't pay them, and for people that owners that pay continuously, the what is it called? The
syndicate?
Yes, the syndicate. They seem to charge those who pay regularly the fees for those who aren't paying. Well, just because they need to cover that cut.
Yeah. Well, when your co-ownership needs to function and you have recurring expenses, if there's people that are not paying, there might be special assessments to cover for that. Then the moment that they're able to recuperate the money from the co-owner that's not paying, they can probably give it back to the other ones. But yes, that is the big challenge when you're in a co-ownership.
I would say that those are some of the headaches from condo owners.
Yes, and that's why when you're going to buy a condo, it's very important to understand what you're buying. And it's very important to understand what documents to ask on a promise to purchase, how to revise those documents, what to look for. And unless you're an expert in condominiums, a real estate broker can help you. But again, not every real estate broker. You have to watch out for that. You have to know that there's brokers that actually understand how the co-ownership is being managed and what documents to ask for.
That's interesting. And I know we talked a bit about the mistakes of choosing the wrong neighborhoods. But what happens, I don't know if we can go more in depth about what happens if a buyer chooses the wrong neighborhood without checking schools, transportation, and future development.
Well, imagine, for example, schools and transportation. You move into your new house and you realize that the school you need to send your kid to is a terrible school with a lot of criminality.
Yes.
What are you going to do? You already bought I have the situation of some clients. They had to go pay for private school for their kid.
Oh my God.
Yeah. If the commute time is too long, then if you don't check every time, for example, I have a client that is planning on changing completely locations from where they're currently living. I tell them, please go and drive to the property during rush hours.
Oh, that's a good tip.
So
That's
that
a
way you're
really
going to
good
know
tip.
actually how long it's going to take you to go to work or to go to your house during rush hours. If you consider that the time you spend on the road convenient, then go for it.
But that's a dilemma that a lot of people are having right now, because properties in the city, we're not gonna be lying to you guys. They're expensive, and they are getting expensive. I saw on the news I think last week, that the average home in Montreal, the value, it's $1 million now.
Yes. Yeah.
So people that are looking for something more affordable, they're looking to cities a bit further than Montreal.
Yes.
So that means that they have to commute. So if they have no choice, that's a reality that a lot of people from Montreal are having right now.
Right, but you're gonna have to make compromises, like with everything in life. But sometimes when you do that commute during rush hours before buying and you realize it's gonna be unbearable, you probably decide that you can buy something smaller, or you can buy at a different location. So yeah, that might change.
Yes.
If you have 4 kids and you have no choice but to go further away, well, you just have to put it in your mind that you're going to have to drive for 1 hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours a day.
And talking about future developments, because we have seen the cities grow, but how does it affect our choices on buying property?
Well, look, that is another program that I want to do, and it's about buying new construction. Construction.
Nice.
So the more so depending on the areas in the island of Montreal, there's not a lot of land left to develop. So let's start with that. In the areas that are further from Montreal and there's being new developments, if you already own a home, be prepared for municipal and school taxes to go up, because the more investment there is in infrastructure, the higher they're going to be. But that's also going to increase the value of your property. So now the other thing, there's an area, for example, in the South Shore of Montreal called Saint-Philippe. Okay. And there's a lot of developments happening there. But what I always tell people is we have to watch out not only for what types of developments in terms of homes construction, but also what other infrastructure is being built. Because, for example, there's a water treatment area. So guess the smells, how they're going to be if you live nearby.
True.
So it's very important to understand also what type of developments in terms of homes and infrastructure.
And talking about, like there were some questions that I wanted to ask you, and these are one of them. What is it? Falling in love with a property is emotionally one of the biggest mistakes that a buyer can make.
Because sometimes people Sometimes people overlook the process. For example, people fall in love with a house, there's multiple offers, they decide to skip inspection.
Ooh, yes.
Or they decide to overpay. So that's why I'm not saying that you shouldn't fall in love with a property, but you should, and that's where, again, the role of a real estate broker comes in to help you say, look, yes, you have a beautiful property here, but let's watch out for this and for that. I have a question here, Catalina. I'm going to say it in English since this is the English. Is the welcome tax deductible for a property when you buy it and you rent it out? Yes.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
Yes, the notary fees too. But take into account that it's not that you buy the property and that you're going to get a tax deduction on your rents the next year. No. When you buy a property that's going to be rented out, so an investment property, you have all of your acquisition costs. When you sell that property, those acquisition costs, like the notary fees, like the welcome tax, are going to come subtract from your profit. So the net the net value of the profit that you made is going to come lower. So if you're planning on buying an investment property, keep the receipts of every single expense, including the notary fees and including the welcome tax.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah.
But I wanted to circle back about the falling in love with the property, because it happens very often. And what are some tips that you can give clients to avoid to fall into that point?
I'm gonna say you can fall in love, but don't skip steps. Like, don't skip the inspection. Don't skip if you find something in the inspection that requires further attention.
Yeah.
Do not ignore it just because you want to buy the property. Get all the quotes you need for whatever it is that the inspector might be telling you. Don't fall in love only with the finishings. Like I always say, it's better to have a home that has good bones than beautiful bathrooms and beautiful kitchens.
True.
Yeah.
And why is important, like what's the important part that play brokers into helping buyers to avoid costly errors?
Like, for example, I've had clients that have fallen in love with properties that have told them, don't go for this. And thank God they decided to do inspections. And when the inspector came, they told them, this is crap.
Wow.
Because they found that the house was convenient, that it was really cheap. And I'm like, look, this house is not worth what you're gonna pay. Please don't make an offer on it. Okay, they decided to make still an offer on it. And at the inspection, they realized that they were buying. And the other thing, if you have a good broker that's coming with you to the visits, that person is gonna be checking out on potential things that are going to show up in the inspection. In my case, I don't look at colors, I don't look at carpets, I don't look at decoration. I'm checking out the electrical panel. Not that I'm an electrician, but I'm checking the electrical panel. I'm checking
I think with your career,
piping,
you have
checking,
a few.
and I'm already telling my clients, look, this is gonna show up in the inspection. This too, you're gonna have. So when it comes to the inspection, they already know at least half of the things that are gonna happen, and they're not gonna be surprised or shocked. Like we see a foundation crack. Depending on how the crack is going, we know I can a little bit know if it's serious or not, and yeah. So
I think it's so many things that you need to be careful with, that sometimes new buyers don't have the sense, don't have the same sensitivity that you guys have.
Yes.
So that's why, and I keep pushing it, some of your episodes, finding a good agent and a good broker, it's so important.
I agree. And I've made many videos about, if your broker is pushing you to get into a transaction and you don't feel like it's the right move, you probably shouldn't be working with that person. If a broker, after an inspection, and the inspector, well, mind you, the inspectors are always going to give you a huge list and tell you that there's a whole bunch of things to look out for. But if the inspector says to look for additional expertise and your broker is saying, nah, that doesn't matter, nah, that's not important, that's a red flag.
Okay.
That's a red flag. A broker should never be pushing for a closing until you feel comfortable. Of course, there's small maintenance things like, oh, you need to do the caulking around the bathtub and the sinks and that. That is not major. But if a broker tells you a foundation crack is not important, excuse me, even if we've been in the market or in the profession for 15 years, we're not structural engineers, unless the broker is.
And what about isolation? how important it is, and just to the fact that because you don't know how it works, you don't know. Sometimes when you're visiting a house in the winter, it's not, the house is not the same during the summer.
Totally.
But how do you know about if it has a good insulation or not?
Look, you're gonna have the inspection, and they're gonna come with the normally the inspectors, they have a machine that's gonna measure the level of humidity. But another very simple thing to look is your Hydro-Quebec bill. If your Hydro-Quebec bill it's a bungalow, and you're paying $300-400 a month, you have an insulation problem for sure.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for sure. You have a heating problem.
Yeah.
So it's either your furnace is very, very old, or you have an insulation problem. But yes, there's things to look out for, and simple documents. We're not, like I say, we're not inspectors, but we have enough expertise to know what to look for.
Exactly. But those will be some of the mistakes that some people that are buying their property for the first time, if they don't know, they could be buying the worst mistake ever.
Exactly. And those documents, it's very important to ask for all of those documents on a promise to purchase. Ask, for example, for the electricity bill. If you have gas, for the gas bill, because that's going to tell you how well insulated or how your furnaces is working. Number 3, ask for the insurance. The insurance, the insurance policy of the house. If you see that the insurance policy is really, really high, it's probably because there has been a lot of claims on it. So there's a lot of documents that can help you, and depending on the type of property. Now, when we were talking about co-ownership, you need to definitely ask for the minutes and financial statements of the co-ownership, the contingency fund studies. Now there's a new attestation de la copropriété that you have to ask for. So depending on if you're buying a revenue property, so you're gonna have to ask for the leases, the notices of renewal, read them properly. So when you're purchasing a property, it's very important to know what documents to ask for. They're key, as well as the inspection, in knowing what you're buying.
And the list of things that you have to know, it's getting longer.
Yes, it's very long, and depending on the type of property, it can get really, really, really long.
Wow.
For example, if you're buying in the South Shore and you're buying a construction that it's from the year 2000 and before, you need to ask for a pirate test. And if it's after 2000, you don't ask for a pirate test, but you ask for a certificate, DB certificate, which shows you that the rock that was used for the foundation, they're going to tell you from where it came, and they're going to guarantee that it had no pirate. So depending, even in the West Island, there's pirate. You need to look out for. So depending on the area, if you are buying a cottage up north and you have no sewage, and so you're gonna have to know how much I forgot the name in English, la fosse septic, the septic tank. You're gonna need to know if the capacity of the septic tank corresponds to the amount of bedrooms in the house.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot of things.
Yes. Jesus.
Yes.
We're learning here so much.
Yeah, because for example, you can buy a cottage that has 4 bedrooms, but the septic system is authorized for 2 bedrooms. The city, as soon as the city knows, they're going to give you a notice of non-compliance, or they're going to ask you to update your septic system, and that can be a $10,000 to $15,000 investment. So if you don't know, and you have to ask for a water quality test. So there's a lot of things, and depending on the area.
That's not cheap.
No. So
and talking about mortgages, why is it dangerous to stretch your budget to the maximum mortgage approval amount?
Yeah, I always tell, that's another of my big the big things that I advise always my clients is don't use 100% of your borrowing capacity, because life happens, because things happen, and you never know when you're not going to be able to pay, or I don't know, something happens at work, or somebody gets ill, and if you're at your max capacity, well, you have no leverage, you have no
Yeah.
room. You cannot refinance, for example. Let's say that if you buy at your maximum capacity and there's a family problem, somebody loses, somebody gets sick,
Exactly.
you can always use refinancing to help yourself or stretch the amortization years. But if you're at your maximum capacity, you can't
That's
do it.
Yeah,
you're gonna
you're
have
kinda
to
stuck.
sell.
Yes. And what should buyers know about co-ownership? I know we talk about it a little bit, but to go more in depth, like the co-ownership rules and contingency funds before buying a condo in Montreal.
I'm gonna tell you one thing. Law 16. Look it up.
The new one.
It's gonna tell you what, and we're gonna do a whole
Episode,
episode about
yes.
co-ownership because it's complex, and it doesn't mean you shouldn't buy in a co-ownership. It just means you need to know what to look for. It means that you need to find a broker that knows about it. For example, I'm going to give you an example. If you're looking to buy a co-ownership and you're looking for a broker, there are certifications on co-ownership. There's one called copropriété. Look out for to see if your broker has it or not, because that means they have followed all the courses and all the updates of Law 16.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah.
And if you could give, like to finish this beautiful episode, if you could give one piece of advice to anyone buying a home in Montreal, what would it be?
I would say do not rush the process. I would say find advice. Ask
Call
questions.
Catalina.
Call me. Or even if you don't call me, call a broker,
Text
but
me.
do your due diligence.
Yes.
And look, the other thing that I always repeat is listen to what your family and friends have to say, but don't believe the urban myths. Ask somebody that knows. Because there's a lot of experts in real estate, the uncle, the sister, the cousin, I say like, I go ask the people that know, go ask an inspector, go ask a mortgage broker, go ask a real estate broker, call a professional. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So for those of you that are listening to us on Instagram, every week we have our show. If you have any subjects that you would like us to talk about,
discuss,
just leave it on the wall. Send it to me by direct message. Our next episode is going to be Friday of next week at 12:30 p.m. If you miss it, it's going to be on my wall and very soon on my YouTube channel.
Yeah. Oh my God, amazing. Good news.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you to having this lovely space. And to be honest with you, every episode we learn so much.
Yeah. And we'll see you next week.